And welcome back to Memoirs of the Father. I am your host, the Father, Alex Burnham. I hope that everybody out there is doing well today. I hope you guys are excited because this weekend is finally college nationals. Very excited to see my kids compete. Very excited to see the routines and find out who's going to come out on top and how this is all going to go down. Hope you guys are excited for it. Hope you guys are going to be watching it. I might try to do something with it coming on. I don't know. But for right now, I'm going to record this episode and I plan to have this out obviously before college nationals. Originally, I posted a video several months back talking about the disadvantages that females have to go through in our sport. And it was the first one that really popped for me. It started getting a lot of attention. It's really kind of made me think that this thing could work. I just said part of what I thought. Now, originally when I posted that was from a recording that I did with my friends. We would always sit down, get together and have drinks, and we'd say, hey, let's just shoot stuff out. You know, you get to yapping, you get to talking and all that stuff. And we thought, man, this is really good. We recorded it. And obviously that's where everything's come from. Now the audio on that is really terrible because it was recorded on a cell phone. But I'm ready to have this conversation. I think it's time. I think lots of people know this conversation needs to be had. And it seems like nobody ever wants to have it. So what we're getting ready to do is we're going to shoot. And I'm going to tell it like it is. How I see it. How I feel. What I'm talking about is like everybody sees this. Everybody knows what goes on. Everybody understands it's not right. It's not fair. But we do very little to ever change it. The most expendable resource in cheerleading has been and always will be females. Let's start shooting. Let's talk about the things that females have to go through in this sport. Let's talk about everything that they have to push and everything they have to go through. And most of it, like I said, most of these things that I'm going to talk about are not even things that should be part of cheerleading. It's all the outside stuff. It's the image. It's the perception. It's the way that you can tear your own mind and the way that this thing that people dream about wanting to be a part of can tear you down and change your whole view of yourself. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to shooting. I just want to say that I think that the skill level of top girls across the board today is absolutely insane. It's filthy. It's disgusting. Some of the insane skills that are being performed all across the board, all ages, everything, man. We're at the peak, man. This is the time where the best of the best are really shining through. But I also want to point out that the best of the best don't always get those opportunities. Today, cheerleading has become about insane stunts and crazy skills. But I think that obviously there's been a shift in the environment. You know, you look at cheerleading routines from 5 years ago, you look at them today, there's a difference. What's changed? The difficulty, like I said, is through the roof. It's absolutely insane. But some of these rules that exist, because of some of the things that we try to do, don't always play into the advantage of every single person that's on the team. There are certain aspects of this that town alone just can't overcome. If you're a 120-pound top girl and you're the best girl on your team, but every other girl on your team is 80 pounds, well, when we go to put together a pyramid, you're going to be the bracer, you're going to be the mid layer, and it has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with skills. It has nothing to do with favoritism. It's the way the law of physics works. The tiniest girl is not going to be able to help the tiny girl. You're only as good as what's around you. I love cheerleading the way that it is. I love the way that cheerleading is designed. I love the way that pyramids and stunts and everything works. But no matter how much time and no matter how much effort that you've put into this, if you're the biggest top girl on the team, you're not going to get certain opportunities that the smallest one is. And whether that's unfair, obviously, if you're going to be a bracer, you have to be able to help control and maintain the top girl. If you're a mid layer, you have to be able to catch and support and be strong enough to hold that girl up. And an 80-pound girl is just not physically going to be capable of that. Now, is that fair or is that right? You know, I don't know the answers to that. In pyramid world, that's the way it works. And I don't really ever see a way around that. Like, it makes logical sense. Unless you're going to start putting guys in the air, then I don't think that we're there yet. I don't think that we're ever going to get there. But unless you're going to put guys as mid layers, then things are not going to change on that end. And I don't think that we should. Just to be perfectly clear about that, it's not something that I want to see. But like I said, no matter how much you've put into this, you can't overcome that. The limit goes even further than that because you can only lose so much weight before it becomes unhealthy. You can't make yourself shorter. You can't make yourself taller. You know, if you're a guy, it's real simple. You go to the gym, you lift weights, you get bigger, you get stronger, you make it work. That's why if I ever heard a guy say something to me about a top girl's weight, I would smack the taste so far out of his mouth that he could never get it back. Why don't you be a man? Instead of sitting there complaining about some top girl's weight, why don't you be a man and why don't you work on your technique and why don't you demonstrate that you're capable of actually doing something? Because these top girls do the best that they can. The last thing that they need to hear after putting in all this time and all this work over all these years is to be told by some guy that they're too heavy, some guy that has a fraction of the experience that they do. You need to work on your technique. You need to make things work. I understand that there are realistic limits to all of this, but if you're going out of your way to tell people that they're too heavy to fly with you, then you're an idiot. And it's not just guys that do this. Girls do this just as much. Bases and back spots, they'll do the exact same thing. Everybody wants the little one. They want the fetus project. They want the little toy to play with and throw around because they think that that's going to make their job work easier. And they realize when you have a girl that's of normal size that you actually have to do these things with, your technique actually has to be good and able to pull these things off. I don't want the fetus. I don't want the itty bitty tiny girl. I think that it's embarrassing in a way. Like if I'm a 240 pound man, I don't want some girl that weighs 60 pounds standing in my hands. It's going to look like I'm working with a child. I want a girl that's got muscle. I want a girl that looks like she belongs on top of a guy like me. I want people to know that we worked on our technique, that we look good together. And that should be the most important thing. You know, I understand in pyramids that you can't change these things. I understand in pyramids that they have to be a certain way. But when it comes to the stunts, when it comes to actually demonstrating what you can do, I believe that you should be able to do these things with everybody. And if you can't, then it's a skill issue. You have a technique problem. It's not your top girl's weight. It's not her fault. It has nothing to do with that. I'm sorry that you have to work on the things that you're supposed to work on. I'm sorry it's not as easy as it should be. But if you actually have these skills down pat, then you should be capable of performing them with anybody. Guys will sit out here and you can sit around, you can eat cheeseburgers, you can weigh 300 pounds, you can be a total fatty, and somebody somewhere will find a place for you. You can be a guy that's a huge guy, muscle or fat, and just stunts, and they'll find a place on the team for you. You can be a guy that's small and just tumbles, but they're going to find a place for the team for you. And guess what? If you're a new guy with no experience at all, but you got some potential, they'll find a place on the team for you. Why? Because guys are hard to come by, and girls aren't. Girls are the most expendable resource in cheerleading because there's an infinite amount of them. Every single year, every single generation, it's a new set of bases, a new set of back spots, it's a new set of top girls. And as this thing continues to get competitive, as these windows start to become bigger and the amount of things that we can do starts to become greater and greater and greater, the expectations become higher and higher and higher. And with a surplus of female cheerleaders like what we have right now, if you don't meet the standard, you will get left behind. You will not get chosen, you will not get picked, and you will lose your opportunities. But then we've got people that will come out here and complain about somebody's weight and never give them the opportunity. They take that option away from them. They can't do what they're supposed to do. Now, I do understand that there are realistic limits to being a top girl. Like, there is a cutoff at some point. But if the girl's in shape, if the girl's doing the things that she's supposed to do, it should be doable. I don't care if she's 4'11" or 6'4". It's doable. It can happen. Maybe you need people of certain size and certain height. Obviously, if she's 6'4", then you probably need a guy that's equivalent to that, that's going to be capable of, bending and dipping and throwing with her. A lot of this stuff comes down to chemistry. If you're a really short girl, sometimes it was hard for me to stunt with really, really short girls because it was hard for me to drop that low. That's not something that she can control. If she's really, really tall, taller than me, but she can fly, but it's a little bit harder for me to keep up with the pace and to find the flick, that's not something that she can control. So now, because of certain height or because of certain sizes, now the people that you work with had to be dictated to being capable to match up with you. I really like flipping skills. I love taller girls because the hips are a lot closer to my face. I don't have to dip and I don't have to get as low. It's boom. Rise. If she can back handspring over the top of me, it's going to make my job really, really easy to be able to get underneath that and put it at the top. And it's just that simple. Certain people work better with other people. But if you don't have those people on the team with you, then you're kind of out of luck. And like I've said before, time and time again, if it's the guy, you'll match the guy. You'll meet the guy's expectations. Why? Because guys are harder to come by. And if you have guys on your team, then you have a co-ed team. And if you're doing a co-ed team, then you need to put up co-ed stunts. It's just that simple. So now these top girls are at a disadvantage because if there's not some guy that physically matches up with them appropriately, then there's no way that it's ever going to happen. Everything that these girls worked for will go away because of circumstances that they can't control, because of things that are completely 100% nothing they can do, nothing they can change about it. These little girls that grew up watching the cheerleaders on the sidelines and said, that's what I want to be one day. They spend all this work and all this time and all this effort, and they have some guy tell them that they're too heavy. They have some girls tell them that they're too heavy, or that you're too tall, or that you're too short. And everything that they work for just goes away. And I think if you're a guy in this, I think that you have a responsibility to step up and be a man. Don't sit here and be like, oh, she's too heavy. Be a man. Demonstrate that you've been strong. Why don't you actually lift some weights and get stronger? Go to the gym and become a man. Put some weight on and let's see if you get any better. Instead of sitting there complaining about they need to lose weight, why don't you gain some weight? Why don't you put the effort into the gym? Why don't you put yourself in the best condition possible? Because I don't need fast food Freddy over there commenting about some top girl's weight. It absolutely makes me disgusting. You're 360 pounds, and the best girl that you can sell with weighs 90 pounds. So why don't we take a little step back and figure out who's the real problem here, buddy? Because I have a feeling it's you, fast food Freddy. It's just that simple, okay? Listen. As a top girl, I'm just going to tell you this straight out. I don't care what size you are. If you're not doing things correctly, it's the difference between feeling like a fridge and a feather. And it's that drastic. Not holding your weight, not doing the things that you're supposed to, not jumping, not flicking on time. All these things, shifting weight incorrectly, all these things can make it difficult. Not all of these things, I think, are weight issues. I think sometimes people feel heavy, and I think sometimes that perception is put out there because there's a technique issue. It's really important that we address that because I've had girls that were some of the heaviest girls that I ever stunted with on weight on a scale, but they would feel infinitely lighter in my hands because they knew how to hold their weight. And I was like, there's no way that that's what you weigh. But it's because that they know how to lift and hold their weight and hold their steady. If it's steady, it's a lot more like metal. You can always lift more weight than you can in people lift. Why? Because of the way that the weight is held. The human body has got water. It's got parts where it bends, your joints, your hips, your knees, all that stuff. Everything is meant to be mobile, not meant to be stiff and steady like metal. So it's really easy to sit around and throw weight because that weight's never going to shift unless you tilt the bar or something like that. It's different with a human being. So the technique and the way that you do these things, they do matter. They matter from a guy standpoint and they matter from a base and a back spot standpoint, but they also matter from a top girl standpoint. And as much as I talk about this being unfair and as much as I talk about this being a travesty, I also do think it's your responsibility to show up in shape. It's your responsibility to put in the work because as we've addressed, this is a very competitive environment these days. There are very, very high expectations. And, you know, I'm not saying sit here and go out there and diet and do all this stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it is your responsibility to present yourself like an athlete that's competing in a very high caliber level competition. That's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to go to the open gyms, to go to the clinics, to put in the extra work. It's your responsibility if you're struggling to find someone to work with you, preferably your stunt partner. And that goes both ways. It's your responsibility too, to get better, to work on your technique. If you don't jump correctly and I have to manhandle you, that's burning more energy and things. I'm going to be more exhausted. If I have to press it, anything about my energy, once it starts feeling depleted, everything starts to feel heavier. It doesn't matter what the size of it is. If I went to the gym today and I put 300 pounds on the rack and I tried to do it 100 times, eventually I'm going to get tired. Same thing, if I took 100 pounds and put it on the rack and said, I'm going to bench this 100 times, at some point I am going to get tired. The more that I have to press, the more that I have to fight, the more that things are going against me, the more difficult it is to do my job. So it's important that top girls are jumping, are flicking, and are holding their weight correctly because anything that goes against that, anything that violates that technique takes extra effort and energy and can exhaust me and make things feel less smooth and I have to struggle. The more energy that I burn, the more difficult everything becomes. It's not a heavy issue. I'm just exhausted, tired. That's why technique's so important. That's why one of the reasons why the top girls are under such scrutiny. It goes back to that microscope that all these girls are under because of how competitive this market is. Every single thing matters. Every single competition, every single practice, every single performance, it matters because there's a surplus of females. If you don't want to do your job, it's very easy for them to find someone who will. My whole issue is, like I said, there are things that lose people opportunities because of things that they can't control, and I just feel like that's one of them. Top girl weight is something that's, to a degree, it's controllable, but it gets to the point where you have people in the environment that believe that they should be a certain way, they should be a certain weight, they should be a certain size, all this stuff, and that's not 100% true. Like I said, I want the girl that looks like she belongs in my hands. I want the girl with some muscle on her legs that's going to jump and get off the ground. I want some girl that's got some triceps, so when she flicks with my flick, it carries and everything feels smoother. She's going to hold her weight in the air, and she's not going to make me fight, and she's not going to make me struggle. That's who I want. I want talent to persevere, regardless of size. I want talent that's dedicated, that's put in the work, that's done the things that they're supposed to do to get the opportunities that they deserve to have. I don't want someone that's being passed up because, oh, it's going to be easier because she's smaller. I don't care about what the weight is. Like I said, I want to demonstrate that what I can do with anybody. And the only way that I can do that is by having good technique. And good technique doesn't matter what size you are. It's just so much harder to be a girl. There are added elements on top of all this. On top of, having to always be in a competitive position, having to always be in shape, having to always be at the top of your game all the time. You have all these other little things that go along with it that don't necessarily affect really what you do from an athletic standpoint. Girls have to spend so much more money on this than guys do, and it's not even close. You have to have these bags and this makeup and all this stuff for your hair and your lipstick and your bobby pins, your hair ties and your scrunchies and all this stuff, all this extra stress that doesn't, ultimately, I don't really understand why any of it matters. Why does a girl have to get up 4 hours before competition and do her hair and makeup? What does that mean? I understand looking presentable, but we have people that spend hours trying to get it perfect. You can't have a wispy out of line. Your hair's got to be flattened and this, and you got to do this poof and all this crap. And, on top of it being the most stressful day, on top of it, you having to deal with all this competitive nature, on top of it's a competition and it's on ESPN and you're worried about making a mistake. On top of all that, you got to be worried and up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing your damn hair. I don't understand what that difference that makes. I don't understand why that's important. I don't understand why we put these people through this. It's not just the competitions. You got to do this for game day. You got to do this for any kind of appearance. Like I said, I understand making yourself presentable, but it's to the point where, these stressful situations just go into, like, if it's the day of the competition and you're sitting there frustrated at 4 o'clock in the morning because you had to get up because you're tired, you're trying to do your hair and you feel like everything's going wrong. And then all of a sudden it starts to change your mindset. It starts to put you into a negativity zone. And once you get into those negativity zones, you feel like it doesn't matter what you're going to do. Everything's going to be wrong. Everything's just not going to go your way today. You start to lose hope. You start to lose confidence. And it's over something as silly as starting out with working on your hair. Kid ever get snappy with you at a cheerleading competition? Ain't because of you. It's because they got anxiety. Because of all this crap and stress that we put these people through. All these demands, all this pressure, all this expectation. And it's not any higher than it is on the girls. Every single thing that they do is under that microscope. For guys, like I said, a lot of the time my guys would just come out there and stunt. Be still. Try not to be noticed when you're not doing anything. From the beginnings to the end, those girls are having to work. And God forbid, the most thankless position in cheerleading to me is to be a girl on a co-ed team and you're not a top girl. Because all the focus is on the guys. All the focus is on the stunts. But if you're not in those stunts, then there's nothing you can do because there's no real reason to do a lot of all girl in a co-ed division because it's not on the score sheet, with the exception of small co-ed, but they do significantly more co-ed than they do all girl if you want to have a chance to be competitive and win. So when you're not doing those things, what are they asking you to do all the time? They're asking you to do jumps and do signs and do motions and to tumble, and all those things are not the most exciting things in the world, and they don't do anything but beat your body up. They don't do anything but put you through a world of pain sometimes. And it's very repetitive. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. And those girls are so important to every single thing that you do. It's not just the top girls that should be getting a parade when things go great. It's not just the guys in the stunts that should be getting, a pat on the back and me talking about the reasons why you're doing these great things, those girls matter too. Those girls that are winning those execution values. Because I'm telling you something, when you get to these high end competitions, you start looking at stunts, you start looking at pyramids, and all this difficulty, it's all really, really close. It's getting to the point where now where there's so many teams that are at a high level, there's so many teams that are competitive, that the difference between these is very, very small decimal points. So what's winning you competitions? Is it that toss QP? Is it this? Is it that stunt? Is it this double up? Or is it the performance? Is it these girls that are doing the sign work that are winning the same difference that you're losing your stunts in? They're winning it back on signs. They're winning it back on palms. They're winning it back on their jumps. They're winning it back on tumbling. They're winning it back on execution and the way they yell and the way that they're performing in front of the crowd and making everything that we do special. Cheerleading has a lot of times has a tendency to focus on those stunts. It has a tendency to focus on the girls. You look at the UCA score sheet and it's, 15 points for stunt execution, 10 for difficulty. And then you turn around and tumbling is worth 10 points. Tumbling is worth 10 points for running and standing and execution and difficulty, all rolled into one nice little package. And there's so many girls it's to the point now where if you're a female, it's absolutely unacceptable to not have tumbling. 100%. And if you want to go to one of these big colleges, it's almost unacceptable to not have elite level tumbling, a full or a 2 to a full. And that expectation does not exist for us guys, not one bit. Some places, yes, absolutely, you have to have a full package. But there's a lot of places if we just got a standing tuck or if you can stunt your butt off, then they're just going to ignore the fact that you don't have any tumbling. But for girls, it's of this extreme level. Because like I said, the market is such a surplus and there's people all over the world trying to come out for these spots. When you go to college, when you're having tryouts, you have to compete against, what's around you. And if all these people have been going to gymnastics and all these people have been doing these things, then obviously you're at a disadvantage right out the gate. If you're not in an environment that can help you grow, if you're not around these people that can do these things, then that makes that job real difficult too. It's so easy to be replaced. It's so easy to be. And these are skills that are not easy. These are not things that you just pick up. Most girls don't just go into gymnastics and in a week have a standing tuck. There are guys that do that because they're not afraid to break their neck. They don't care. But, obviously girls want to do things a certain way. They don't generate the same level of power, not all the time. There are exceptions to that. And doing things on a dead mat is a little bit more difficult than doing things on a spring floor. But there's no way to really try and overcome that. You have to be at that level. You have to be able to do these things. Like I said, I think the disadvantage or, the travesty of it all is that guys don't have to be able to do that. We don't have that expectation, but girls do. And not just do it, be able to do it at a really high level and perform it. And to be able to do these things consistently, time again, over and over and over and over. And these things, I'm telling you, man, they really beat your body up. They destroy your knees. They destroy your ankles. You start having problems with your lower back. Your wrists will have to be taped up. Everything starts to beat and wear and tear on you. And that's the demand that we put on these females every single time. Like I said, it's become so big and so competitive, and the surplus is just so big that the standard and the quality and the expectation is so significantly higher than it has ever been. And there are girls that have to deal with that every single day. Getting a mental block is one of the scariest things in cheerleading. But it doesn't surprise me that mental blocks are on an uptick right now when you're introducing all this tumbling into stunts at a very young age, high school age, and even below that. You're now allowed to do all these inverted stunts, so now you're allowed to take all this tumbling. And some of these high school girls don't have all this stuff mastered. They're not exactly comfortable with it. Or you get into these young girls like these middle schools. You got East Side Middle School that's got 12-year-olds ripping back handspring pull-ups. That's absolutely insane notion. A mental block is probably the dirtiest word in cheerleading. It's one of the most maddening experiences to go through because you can't even really explain it to anybody because it doesn't make any logical sense to you while you're going through it to begin with. Because if it did, then you'd be able to fix it. And then you've got pressure from everybody. Your coaches, your parents, your friends, your teammates. Everybody's putting pressure on you to be able to perform these skills because that's what the expectation is for you. And then you've got everybody under the sun. They want to come up to you and they want to give you advice. They want to tell you should do this and you should do that. And then by the time you get 50 different opinions mixed in with what's already going on in your own head, it all gets jumbled up, it all gets confused, and you start making changes that you don't need to change and drastically alter the way that you do this to begin with. And then ultimately it all boils down to how can any of these people really know what's going on in your head when you don't even know what's going on in your head? The introduction of tumbling into stunts at that young age has started to cause an uptick in that. Because now you're having to shift your form and you're having to shift your technique. Doing a back handspring up and doing a standing back handspring are two very, very different things. You have to have a different level of body control, and some of the throw is a little bit different because you know you're trying to stop yourself in this position. You're trying to make this really long. Sometimes it's not easier to tumble out of the length that you're actually making your back handspring. A lot of these things, people are struggling going back and forth, and that's what's creating an uptick in this, is that, something goes wrong in a stunt, in a flipping stunt, and now you're scared to do this. Or you've had to change and alter your technique on a rewind to the point where now your standing tuck looks terrible. Or you've had to alter your back handspring up to where you're not being able to do these things the way. You're not being as aggressive. You're not able to snap down. All these things start to happen because there's an introduction, because they're not as fully developed with some of these skills. And now they're being asked to change them when they don't really have a full grasp of them to begin with. And like I said, it's another element of adding that abuse onto females, of pounding on your wrist. Because I'm telling you something, being a guy and sitting there throwing that stuff straight up flipping stunts, and that's not bad. That's easy. But I'm seeing more and more girls that got their hands and their wrists taped up, and it's the pounding. It's, even on a day where you're like, we're going to take it easy, we're just going to stunt, we're not going to have the tumbling beating on us. Then you have every single pop-off beating on you, you have every single tumbling, and now you're adding tumbling into stunts. So you're not getting any days off on it. You're getting extra reps, extra pounding on your wrists, and you're starting to see the effects of that. People are getting beat up. People are giving up at a younger age now than they ever have. And some people love it, and I'm all for it. I respect it. I love it as part of the grind. And I enjoy putting in work, and I enjoy doing all these things. But that if you can't do these skills, that you'll get replaced. And people get reckless sometimes. People take chances. Sometimes you have bad coaches out there that don't do the things that they're supposed to properly prepare their team to be able to do these skills. And that poor top girl is the lamb to the slaughter. You got a bunch of guys, you got a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing, and it's just, well, we got to do this to score this, and just putting people through the ringer. Building into having bad technique, building into giving people opportunities that shouldn't have them, building into ignoring these other girls. Because what's easier? Is it going to be easier to throw a back handspring up with an 80-pound girl or a 120-pound girl? Even if she's got poor technique, you can kind of manhandle her. And if you can throw them high enough, they'll figure out where to put the feet. It's all a circle. Everything builds back to one thing on top of the other. The expectations and the demands that we have on girls is just absolutely insane. I understand the competitive nature of it because I love competition. I love being the best that I can. I just am concerned about what we're putting them through for all the rules and the standards of all this. It just beats on people. And the way that people look at it, like I said, I think a lot of it comes down to people just want to take the easier road. And people don't sit there and think about what these girls go through. People don't think about all the mental anguish. It's pretty much just always become, this is a part of what it is. This is just the way that cheerleading is. This is just the way that it's supposed to be. But I don't think that it's really meant to be that. I think hard work deserves great opportunities. You go to the University of Kentucky and you come into a practice and, you see those girls with, just like Spanx on and sports bra, and these girls are shredded. They're tiny, but they're in outstanding shape. And they're some of the best girls in the world. And you can't beat stuff like that. When you're in shape, when you're, that you can see their back muscles, you can see the definition of the arms, you can see their abs, you can see that they're not starving themselves in the best shape that they can be. And it's hard to beat something like that. But that's respectable. That's part of the game. That's part of their dedication. They did the things that they were supposed to do to get into that shape. They did the work that they were supposed to do to be at that quality, to be at that skill level, to be able to perform at this level. They did the things that other people weren't willing to do. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of self-control. And I don't want to discredit anybody like that. That's not who I'm talking about. I am talking about the little rag dolls that get an opportunity just because. I am talking about the way that we beat and psych these girls down. Because that's just the way that it is. Because there's such a surplus. Because there's such an increase in difficulty. Because the demands are so high. You can't believe how many girls have reached out to me since I posted that first TikTok video talking about this. You can't understand how many girls have cried on my shoulder because somebody told them that they were too heavy. Because it all feels too hard. Because the pressure is so immense. You don't understand how many girls I've had to sit down and tell, hey, it's okay, here's a bobby pin, that are having a meltdown over their hair. These were once just little girls who just wanted to do this. They wanted to be like that girl that was standing on the sideline. And maybe, now you are that girl too. Maybe it's a Friday night, you're at a football game, and there's some little girl that's looking down at you saying, I want to be like her. And that little girl doesn't always know what she's getting herself into. All she sees is that happy, smiling girl that's sitting there on the sidelines, that's sharp, that's performing. And she says, I want to be like her. I want to wear that uniform. I want to stand in that same place. I want to be doing all the things that she did. And I just want it, when it comes time for that generation to be able to come up, I want things to be right. I want men to step up and have pride and bases and backspots and say, we're going to do what we're supposed to do. We're going to put in the work. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But nobody is ever going to be able to look at me and say that I didn't try. Okay? I have sat there and fought and fought and fought for people that I knew would never get the opportunity because I felt like it was my responsibility to at least try. For years I did that. Any girl that ever came up to me and said she wanted to try, I would do it. There were girls that were afraid to do it that I was sitting there, I'm like, you're too small. Like, you have to be able to do this. But they were afraid because that was the image that was put in their head, that they were too heavy. But I knew that they could. I did that for almost a decade. I didn't work on myself. I didn't put in the time to make myself better. I took my responsibility. I took my skills and I tried to use it to make other people better. And if that makes me look like an idiot because I didn't focus on myself, then oh well. If I didn't achieve the potential that everybody thought that I was going to achieve, then boo-hoo, because I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud of the opportunities that I gave people. I'm proud of the moments when some girl turned around and looked at me and I could see that hope and that faith form in her eyes because someone just did what they were supposed to and they gave them a chance. I'm not disappointed in myself. I'm not disappointed in the work that I did to give people. I'm not even disappointed in the effort that I put into people that ultimately quit and it just didn't work out. I'm disappointed in the way this system works. I'm disappointed in the guys that don't want to prove themselves, that don't want to accept the challenge. I'm disappointed in the people that always want to take the easy way out. I'm disappointed in the people that don't believe in great technique. I'm disappointed in the people that don't want to prove themselves, that don't have that chip on their shoulder. I'm disappointed in the people that don't think that other people deserve certain opportunities. I'm disappointed in the standards that we put on these girls to perform at an extremely high level at an incredibly young age. I'm disappointed that hair and makeup means as much as anything on the day. I just think it's time that we can do better. I'm all for growth. I'm all for things getting to this point to where everybody can be incredible. And I'm all for everybody getting an opportunity. And like I said before, I do believe it's your responsibility to understand and show up and meet the expectation. I'm not saying that we roll this back and we make this easier. I'm not saying that we make it simple. I'm not saying that we dumb it down. I'm saying that maybe we can be a little bit more relaxed on hair and makeup. I'm saying maybe we can take a little bit more time to devote on technique to give people opportunities. I'm saying if you're a guy and you're great, maybe you prove it. Maybe you step up and you demonstrate what you can do with anybody. I could never be a female in the sport. I could never know what it's like to truly be under that microscope at all times. To have every single thing you do at practice to be absolutely examined. From the way you hold your wrists in a motion. From the way that you have to be sharp with a sign. From the way that you have to smile. From the way that you have to step and walk and perform at all times. From the weight that you have to carry. Every single day of knowing that you have to be great every single day. Just knowing that you have to perform and be at a high level every single day. It doesn't matter if you're hurt. It doesn't matter if you're sick. It doesn't matter if you feel bad. The expectations are too high. The market's too high. I just hate what girls have to go through, man. I had my own girls, Abby and Maddie, that I both saw go through very different careers in cheerleading. And I saw the way that it affected them at home. For Abby, she was always a phenomenal top girl. I always thought very highly. I always loved working with her. And it's not just my bias, obviously. She won national championships in high school. She won a national championship at Moorhead All-Girls. She won at Memphis Co-Ed. So I think that she's proved her point. But she dealt with this too. She had girls telling her that she was too heavy when she was in college, after she had been on the team for 3 years. And people still said stuff to her. People still made comments. And I know the way that that affected her. And she was talented. One of, if not the best girl that I've ever gotten to work with. But people wanted to say stuff about her weight. And she would come home and I'd sit with her and I'd have no problem. I understand that I'm a man, but I always felt like she deserved way more than she ever got. I always felt like, despite all the championships that she has, I don't really think that that's a true indicator to how great she was and how much she let go through this, how much she sacrificed, how much she gave to be a part of this, to continue to feed into the system in some ways, to always work hard, to always push herself, to always do these things, to not take any days off, to get dropped and get back up and just pretend that it's okay even though you're screaming inside. I've seen her with her thighs taped up because of girls. You know, she was a mid layer, so girls are always grinding on her skin and beating and the bruises. Having her hip wrapped, and she had broken ribs and had her ribs taped up when she performed at Nationals her last year. Performed co-ed, stunts, pyramids with broken ribs. I'm proud of her, 100%, but I wish she didn't have to go through all that. And then I had Maddie, who had an attitude and was aggressive, and she got opportunities a little bit easier than her sister did sometimes. But I sat there and I knew the stress of watching her struggle with her tumbling, having to be at this certain level, frustrations, the injuries, the pounding on the wrists and the knees. I saw physically what it did to her. And I remember what it was like to be me when I was a young guy coming up and nobody wanted to work with me. Nobody wanted to give me an opportunity. And some of it, they just wanted to work on themselves. They just wanted to do what was fun. Just wanted to do their thing. They didn't want to work with this guy. And I just have a hard time looking at any girl and saying no, that I won't give you that opportunity, because I have worked so hard to be at this certain skill level that I feel like I should be able to give back. I should be able to reciprocate that. I should be able to elevate people. And if I'm as good as I think I am, if I'm as capable as I think I am, then I should be capable of that. And that's the way that I will always look at it, that it's my responsibility. I'm going to catch my top girl, putting their life in my hands, their safety, their well-being. They're putting their trust in me. They don't know me from Adam. But she's still giving me that faith. She's still giving me that trust. It's my responsibility to make her feel comfortable. It's my responsibility to demonstrate that I'm capable of doing these things, to earn that trust so that when she's in the air, she can just focus on her and what she needs to do. I believe that if you work with people and you give them time and you give them the opportunity, that they'll make it. If you're good, if you know what you're doing, if you're teaching people correctly, if you're not just being one of those great guys that just throws girls around, that teaches them, that helps them develop, if you are there and you're supportive of them, if you're better than what we are sometimes. Girls, if you're out there, the best thing I can tell you is be in shape. You ain't got to be a six-pack. You ain't got to be shredded. You ain't got to starve yourself. That's the worst thing that you can do, is stop eating. As a matter of fact, you probably need to start eating more and reactivate your metabolism that stopped working the way it was supposed to when you were 16 years old. Lots of meat, lots of protein. Get everything burning. Get your metabolism up. Do box jumps, box jumps, box jumps, box jumps. Because I promise you, honey, if you can jump, everything's easy from there. If you're a guy, keep working. Work on your technique. Put in the work that you're supposed to. Go to the gym. You know, if you're a girl, you need to get in gymnastics and you need to be serious about it. Don't just come in there and laugh with your friends and goof off. This is going to be competitive. And the last thing that you want to do is to end up in an environment where you realize there was time you wasted before that would prepare you for this moment. Be proud of yourself. Look back at your experiences and know that what you can do. Don't let anybody tell you that you're incapable of doing something because of your size. Don't let anybody tell you that you're incapable of doing something because of your skill level. Everybody can get better. Everybody can get stronger. People can get in better shape. People can make things work. We can do that. Be supportive. Be strong. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know what they struggle with. You don't know what medications they're taking that are putting on weight, what their life and their stress and their sleeping habits are. If you're going to do this, be part of that community. Open that door. Give these people an opportunity. Be supportive. Be encouraging. Be the best that you can be. And be able to say that, hey, even if this person doesn't work out, even if it didn't pan out the way that they wanted to, I know that I gave them everything that I could to give them the best opportunity that they can give them. I'm sure that there's an infinite more amount of things that I could talk about that girls have to go through that guys don't, and a lot of the travesties and disadvantages in cheerleading. There's probably way more. I've never been a female. I've only had to see what I've gotten from my experiences as a coach, as from an athlete, and as from a cheer parent. And I know I'm only addressing a few small issues, but I want to tell you this: just don't stop fighting. And if you're out there and you know someone that's going through these problems and that's going through this struggle, don't stop fighting for them. If we make the choice, if we as a community decide to step up, we can make a difference. And that's where we're going to wrap up for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something. I hope that I opened you to think. I hope that I've tried to make things make sense. I tried to do the best that I can, but obviously this is just, it's one of those things that's very, very difficult to think about. It's very difficult to overcome. And it's one of those things that we all know exists and we all know that it always goes on. But very few times does anybody ever try to step up and change things. And that's my challenge to everybody. Let's make these girls' lives a little bit easier. Let's put in the work for them. Let's give them the opportunity. But ladies, at the same time, it's your responsibility to do what's your responsibility. You understand that there's a lot more people that are trying to do this, a lot more people that are gunning for your spots. Take your responsibility in this and do the things that you're supposed to as well. Stay strong. Never lose your confidence. Because I promise you, it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you put in the work and you do the things that you're supposed to, opportunities will come back. It may not always be all the opportunities that you want. But understand, too, that this is not about being an individual. This is about being a team. And being a part of the team, at the end of the day, nobody's going to remember who was in this stunt or that stunt or who was in this pyramid or that pyramid. They're just going to remember how you did and how you performed. You're never judged by one element. You're judged by the entire picture. I just want it to be easier to make the picture. I don't know where we're going to go next time. I don't know if I'm going to pick up on my coaching or if I'm going to continue to shoot off about some of these things that I think are just crazy in cheerleading. There's a lot that I can talk about still about judging. There's a lot that I can talk about coaching. A lot that I can talk about from my own career, my own experiences, and help develop my mindset. But wherever we go next, I'm excited for this journey. If TikTok does end up shutting down, I have added my Instagram reel to my TikTok page. It is attack.on.alex. And that's where you can find me on Instagram. So if TikTok ends up going down, I will continue to do these little videos, posting them up there, hyping up the things that I'm talking about, promoting each episode of my podcast, and keep trying to expand this and trying to grow this. If TikTok stays, I'm going to keep using that, and I hope that it does, just because I've kind of already built up a small little following and things are rolling a little bit better. I'm going to continue to upload on YouTube. To me, YouTube's the easiest thing to use. For Spotify and Apple, I have to submit it with sponsors, and I have to submit it with someone has to review basically every single thing that I'm saying and what I'm talking about to see if they'll publish it. With YouTube, I can just freely do it, edit it, all that stuff, and just upload it, and it takes almost no time to do that. There's no wait, no response. So for me, that's what I'm going to keep doing. I think it's easy, convenient. You can pull up YouTube on your phone. You can pull it up on your car. You can pull it up on your computer at home. Anytime you can pull it up and listen to what you're doing. You can just turn it on, set it down, go about cleaning the house, go about doing chores, doing homework, and just listen to what we have to say. So I would like to keep continuing to do that. If the chance arises, it gets so popular and I can expand, then I will. But for right now, look for that Instagram handle in the future, attack.on.alex. On TikTok at attackonalex64. And you can follow my YouTube page right here, Memoirs of the Father. I look forward to where we go next time. We'll see what happens. Get some rest. Get ready to sit down and enjoy college nationals. I might do like a live video with some review. Might just go real ham on it last day on TikTok, So might just really let it rip and make the most of it. But continue to stay safe. Continue to do the things you do. Thank you for your support. Like, subscribe, retweet, show it to your friends, show it to all your people. Do whatever you can to help me make this grow. Thank you all. And I'll see you next time on Memoirs of the Father.